Hey. So,
Hey.
welcome to Life of a CEO with your girl, Shauna Solomon. Please excuse how I look today because I literally just got off the plane, but I am excited to be here with my girl, Sharise Nance. Hey, girl.
Hey, hope you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. So, we
Oh,
had a little bit of
whew.
technical difficulty, but that's okay because that's what happens. But I am glad. I'm actually glad that I was able to even run home and jump on this call because I'm like, this is getting ready to be good. It's getting ready to be good. But real quick, just go in and just introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are, what you do, and then we are going to jump right in. Today, we're talking about business challenges and successes, and I couldn't have a better guest to have this conversation. So go ahead
Thank
and
you. Thanks for having me. I was wondering, I was like, how's she going to get off that plane? Maybe she's going to do it in Vegas, but I know she's going to, figure out a way. So again, thanks for having me. I am Sharise Nance. I'm a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also a trauma specialist. I do a lot of work around compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, and burnout. I'm also the co-owner and founder of Hand in Hand Counseling Services, which I co-own with my good friend and partner Tess. It's a group mental health counseling practice, and we've evolved from a very small practice into a bigger group practice. We have about 8 therapists now, and we help people struggling with depression, anxiety, complex trauma. We run groups, family sessions, and also vitamin C healing. No, I'm not actually selling vitamins. I get asked that all the time. I do try to subscribe to a healthier lifestyle, and it's metaphor for healing of the whole person, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, which has evolved to those helping professionals and mental health leaders who are struggling with compassion fatigue and burnout. I facilitate a lot of workshops and trainings, offer some keynotes, and also our online courses as well.
okay, so you are definitely the right person to be having this conversation with when it comes to what goes on in these entrepreneur streets.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me some of the things that did you see, not you personally, not that
Mhm.
you have dealt with personally. We'll get into that. But what are some of the things that you see that are going on when it comes to small business and the challenges that we have?
One of the biggest things that I'm sure many of us can relate to is just trying to do it all. When you're a small business, especially when you're just getting started, you have limited access to resources, to funding. So it's just and we usually start businesses based on our skill, what we're good at. I'm a therapist, I'm a social worker. So what did I do? Me and Tess ran and opened up a private counseling practice. Now there's nothing wrong with that. However, we can find ourselves in a space where we become overwhelmed, we overextend ourselves, which can lead to burnout because we spend too much time in that technician mode. And I'm trying to think of that book. It escapes me, but it'll come back to me where I got that word from. And when we find ourselves in that technician mode, that's when we are like functioning, when we're working 12, 15 hours a day repeatedly. We don't have time to work on a business. And if we're not working on a business, then we're not growing the business. We we own a job, for lack of better words, and it won't grow. And you can find yourself, you may begin to resent your business if you're constantly in that space where you're in this worker bee mode, and there's no working on a business, there's no plan or strategy to grow the business. You're just working in the business all the time. So that's a something common that I see with a lot of novice business owners. And we know there's a difference between business owners and entrepreneurs, but I'm sure we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a lot. So I heard you mention that the working in your business and not on your business. Explain that. Explain your perspective from that, because I know
Yeah.
we have those
So
conversations It's a lot.
this is something that I had to learn because again, I'm a clinician, so I can do therapy, I can run groups, I can be in it where I'm doing the day-to-day stuff, as far as the creating content and the coming up, with the ideas and just being in it and seeing clients and facilitating. That's being in the business. You are functioning as an employee. You are functioning as a technician, a clinician, whatever your title is, you are in it. The business needs you to do that.
Function.
If you are removed from the business might fail. You might not be able to keep your doors open very long because you're in it. When we're working on the business, this is when we are doing things outside of the business that's going to make it grow. This is, when you're investing in coaching. This is when you're doing things like marketing. This is the
Delegating.
sessions. These are those things that owners and founders do. And when you're able to do that and you're moving away from, the day-to-day stuff, I'm assuming that you have put people or systems in place so that the business can run without you.
Right. And I think a lot of times people think that, like you stated, that they they have to be everything at first, but you have to get to that point where you have to start delegating, where you have to have those systems in place, where you have to do things like you said so that you can grow. And I feel like that is the disconnect that I feel like. The more that I see stuff when I'm on Facebook and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's doing something else and she hasn't mastered this, even she hasn't mastered that. But it's like, oh, or I have 5 businesses, and I'm like, well, are you making money in all those 5 businesses? And then that's a completely different story, So it's like, I just feel like there needs to, like, the conversation needs to be had, because I think a lot of what people see, I know even with us, is they see the success, but they don't see a lot of the challenges that we have dealt with to get there. So, like, example, like me coming back, and this is one of those things that me coming back, being able to get on this call, but I've been off since Friday of last week, right? But I have things in place so that I normally work 2 to 3 days full, 2 to 3 full days out of the week, and I can literally enjoy life because I knew it was time for me to hire. I knew there were different things for me to do, I needed to do in order for me to grow. Um, how do we stop that or can we even stop that when it comes to these small businesses? What do you think?
Good question. We might need another podcast for this. We know everything starts up can a lot of things start up here. A lot of things are mental, and we understand like systems, especially if we're talking about black and brown communities. There's just been a lot of things that have been embedded, instilled, and it's systemic, and it's hard to break these cycles.
Mhm.
We Many of us just have a blue collar worker bee mentality that we have to do it all, and it's part of the way I was raised. Half
Yep.
of my family was that blue collared, and there is another half of my family that's entrepreneurial. My dad worked for years, but he kind of had that spirit where he was very good at delegating. My grandmother's very good at delegating. My uncle's very good at delegating. Like, they do that well. Like, they had that spirit. They're able to, come up with systems before we even started really talking about what they are. I think the more that we're around it and the more that we're able to see it done successfully, then people will start to say, okay, so it can be done. I see it happening, and I see this person actually having success with it. But if we're not around it being done, and all we see are, people on the struggle bus from the time they open their business, and then it's 15 years later and you're still struggling. I get it. The first
Same
couple of
thing.
years of running a business, starting a business, is hard. You're probably going to be broke. You're going to fail. You're going to wonder, like, am I going to get evicted, or am I going to
Right.
foreclose on my house this month? Like, how are we going to eat? How am I going to pay the bills? And it gets real. However, like, if you've been in business for like 10 years and it's still like that, then, we got to go back to the drawing board, because that's not what it's supposed to be about. We got in business to make a profit. I mean, we
Right.
want to make an impact. We want to help a lot of people. We want to change lives, and we want to make a profit.
Right. And
That's,
I think
being
that a
brave.
lot of people, like, I mean, you mentioned earlier, like, I feel like a lot of us, we get into business out of need initially, which I completely get. But then
Mhm,
at what point do you get to a point where it's like, okay, I really want to grow this. This is my bread and butter. I feel like there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are still living check to check or
mhm.
sale to sale, right? So at
Yeah.
some point you have to, like you said, like invest in a coach. And I'm not just saying that because of what I do,
Mhm.
but even investing in yourself in different ways, like showing up for yourself. I talk about that all the time. And I just feel like, especially when I do my classes, I'm like, oh my goodness, like there, especially if you see the repeat people, all the time, like what is it going to take for you to want or to do something different? Because for me, one of the one of my whys, when it came to entrepreneurship initially was money. I wanted to control how
Mhm.
much money I can make.
Mhm.
But now it's more about peace and being able to say I can take this time off and really enjoy it and not have to worry about where the next meal was going to come from and all of that. But what are some tips that you can give some of those people who are not sure or kind of still like straddling the fence when it comes, because again, it goes back to that they're doing so many things thinking that they have to do everything instead of trusting, because trust is huge in entrepreneurship. You have to be able to trust that you're going to make the right decision on who you hire in order to get things done. What tips would you give somebody to even try to trust so that they can start doing that? Because I feel like they're just going around in circles. It's that little hamster wheel that I see that
Yeah.
goes on.
So are you saying like trust that they can focus on one thing and or
No,
trust that
trust that they can eat. Like even when it comes to delegating, like they
I
have
see.
to trust that they are making the right decisions for their business instead of just saying, "Oh," like say for instance, like I have a
I see
client
what you
who
mean.
she makes a decent amount of money. She's based out of Atlanta, but her issue is she doesn't trust enough in order to walk away,
I see.
right?
Okay. 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 So that's a process. And I think, being a therapist, got my clinical hat on, I think that would need some deeper processing because,
Mm,
there's something there that may be connected to, some past
mm,
trauma or, something that has to do with, the relationship with trusting people with, because it is a trauma response when it's like, well, I'll just do it myself. No, if I want it done right, then I'll do it myself. Like that's even though that may be true. We were put here on this earth to, connect and to have, relationships and to build our social capital. So that may need some deeper processing because that's not a healthy response, even though I get it, especially when there's evidence that, people have burned you and that
absolutely.
it can happen again. And
Yeah.
also normalizing that you're right. Like it's hard trusting people. And being in business is a huge leap of faith. Like you're going to constantly be taking a leap in some area. Like it's not just this, oh, I left my job and now it's just going to be smooth selling. Like you might fail. You might take a loss. You're going to have to fire some people. You're going to have to make some unpopular and tough decisions that are going to make you uncomfortable, that are going to make you cringe. It might put you in a space where you doubt yourself. All of that comes with being a boss, with being a business owner, with
That
being an
part.
entrepreneur. And if you're risk averse and that's not for you, that's okay. If that none of that is for you and you don't want to risk it and you don't want to experience that level of discomfort, then don't do it. Because there's
Mhm.
just no way around that. Even if you get a therapist and you're able to process, where that's coming from, and you're able to have a healthier response, understand that it's still going to happen. You're still going to hire people, contract with people, and relationships aren't going to go well. You're going to have to end them and you're going to have to fire like that. That comes with it. I
And
can't tell
I
you
feel
how
like it
many.
takes a certain type of person to do
Yeah,
that, and if you can't do it, you absolutely need to hire somebody who
you
can,
can. That part.
um,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
I feel like and I know, like, with me, I know that there's things that I love to do and things that I don't like to do, and I always delegate. I always tell my clients that too. Anything that you don't wanna do, that you can't do, that are your weak points, like, delegate it because you're not gonna want to one, you're not gonna wanna do it, so you're gonna BS with it, right?
Hmm.
So then that's another that's another part of your business going to fail. So let's just go at it right instead of trying to do, because you got to think, if you're trying to do everything in one business, then you turn around and open up another business, and you got to do everything for
Yeah.
that business as well.
Yeah.
It's way too much. You mentioned having, we talked about like building relationships. How important is it to have a strong support network?
Oh my goodness, it's everything. I mean, I'll start with y'all. I don't know what I would do without y'all. Like, each of y'all brings something different to me, like with you and with Nikki and with Toya and with Tess. Even my husband, being in a healthy marriage, like all of that matters. Just having, the right people, the supportive people, who can give you that constructive feedback. You might not like it, but it's from a good place to help you grow and to make sure that you're on the best path. If you have people around you who are not supportive and who are secretly hoping for your fail, your demise, and they're not like your biggest cheerleaders and just there for you, it makes this journey, that much harder. I was listening to this audible yesterday, and he was talking about, because I know, even though I'm a therapist, I do a lot of speaking. I am more of an introvert. Whenever there's an opportunity for me to be alone and to skip an event, I'm going to choose to skip it. Like, I prefer to, maybe that's me being an only child. I'm glad Bill's an only child too, because we get each other, and y'all too. Like, we
Yep, because
all get each
people
other.
think that I'm really. They think that oh, you're so sweet. You just speak to everybody. I'm okay with being by
But
myself. Like I have
because
no
we have to take that time to recharge, and in this
problem.
book he was talking about, sometimes with introverts, sometimes we have to get out of our mind and connect with people. So finding that balance and connecting with the right people and knowing when you're at your capacity so that you can emotionally recharge, because it takes a lot for us to have to go to all these events, connect with people. It can feel overwhelming and exhausting, and making sure that we have that time to be alone and be around the people who truly pour into us.
Right. Yes, and not overwhelming. So we did the Black Label Market. No, we did the Black Woman Meetup a couple weeks ago. Was it not last, the week before last? And one of the things that I noticed was that a lot of people were saying that they were coming out of their shell, that they wanted to come out more to meet and network with new people. I was surprised at how many women said that night. Like, and I'm like, but it's a thing, like where women don't feel comfortable being, and again, it goes back to that trust. Like, why are you there? But it felt good to see so many who didn't know each other having these conversations, meeting up, talking about meeting up and doing things like that. I did see somebody had mentioned values, and I want to ask you about that. How important is, because she was talking about attending certain things and how it didn't match her values and her values. And I was like, me, that's who those are the people that I love talking to, when they know what their
Mhm.
values are, when they stand true to them. How important is that in business when it comes to networking, when it comes to being in business? Is it to stay true to your values?
I think it's everything. I even talk about it in my workshops with burnout and compassion fatigue. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
at the foundation. I have people, take some time to identify their values, and we do some activities around that. Like, I know, like, my top values are, like wellness, family, a higher being, God. Like, those are the things that are my top values. And whenever I'm making a decision, it needs to align with my values. That doesn't make the decision any easier, but it gives me almost like a blueprint for making my decisions.
Absolutely.
Like, my days are organized around me being able to exercise, whether it's lifting, walking, running. Like, it has to fit in with that. Like, I'm not going to schedule something too early, because then that's going to get in the way of me being able to work out in the morning, and that's not going to work for me. I'm not going to show up as my best self. I'm going to show up
Mm-hmm.
very annoyed, if at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important that we try to stay aligned with our values. And there are going to be situations where maybe we can't, and we have to ask ourselves, am I okay with having some flexibility? And how might that affect my future self if I compromise on this value? Like, what's that going to mean for me? What's that going to
Yeah.
mean for the relationship or the business?
And I think too, like when it comes to value, I know for me, it makes it easier to say no
Yeah.
when
Yep.
it doesn't align. And I think that when it comes to small business, we want to be a part of everything that's going on. So it's like, especially when you first getting started,
Oh my
oh,
God.
you want to go be with this
Setting
person
up them tables everywhere.
everywhere, and it's like that doesn't align. We get a lot of people
Yeah.
who say, especially with Black Label Market, who are like, well, when I did this event, I didn't make any money. And I'm like, well, what was it? Your audience? Was it your vibe? Like, did it even align? Like, does it make sense for you to be in that room? And it was
Yep.
like me even having those conversations. It's like those are the basic conversations that we need to have to build that solid foundation, so that as you grow, it's still you're just continuing to build in the right direction. Whereas a lot of small business are skipping over that, all the stuff that they consider little from your target audience, your values, and all of that, and just saying, okay, I just want to be a business, and that's another thing too. Everything should not be a business,
No,
right?
no. It's okay to have a hobby. It's okay, because I'll be honest, there was a time, how I got into running, like around the time my dad died, I had running. And I still do it, but not as intense as I
Right.
did. And it's something that it truly did help, save my life. It helped me through my grief. And initially I was like, oh, I'm gonna write this book, I want to do this. And then I had to slow down, like, okay, Sharise, you don't need to be that business owner or that entrepreneur. Like everything doesn't have to be an opportunity. Like it's okay for you to just enjoy running. Like don't, because now you're going to put more stress on it if you try to make it a whole nother, monetize. You don't have to monetize everything. Some things could be just for the enjoyment. So I decided to just enjoy that. Like I have enough things that I'm doing that can, make me money and that are, business opportunities, and they align with what I'm doing.
Right. And I think a lot, again, they ignore that. And I feel like that's something that we really need to start, these conversations that we really need to start having with a lot of, and it's not just new business owners. I see a lot of
Yeah.
veterans out there that are doing the same thing, like, oh, well, I just started this other business. Oh, let me do this because, and granted, yeah, there's a need, or there
Yeah.
might be a need for, but it might not be your place to fill that. And I think that
That part.
one of the things that Kashara told me, she taught me a long time ago, was to, like, when it comes to like staying in your lane, when it came
Yeah.
to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I will be forever grateful for like her even guiding me when it came to retail businesses, because granted, I love being able to grow, and like now that I've grown into more like coaches, speakers, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for me streamlining the retail, it would have, I all over the place,
You
because
could
I
have sold everything. Yeah.
and
And I,
it's
and,
so
yeah.
easy to do. It's so
And I
easy
think,
to do.
yeah, and I think you brought up a good point when you talked about, a lot of seasoned business owners or entrepreneurs will they'll, say, oh, I'm going to start this other business, and it goes back to maybe the lack of confidence when, maybe your business hasn't been doing well. So it's like, let me start something new instead of like, let me go back to this and see, like, what I can fix here. Like, do I need to rebuild that foundation? Is there something here? Like, we don't even give it a chance, because
Right.
there are times we could have gave up on, hand in hand. I could have gave up on, vitamin C, but there were things that we needed to do. We needed to go back to the drawing board and, rebuild it and enhance it, instead of just like, oh, let's just start something completely new.
And I think, the next question is going to be about measuring success, because you brought that up. That's a good point. When it comes to being in business, because I know, like, I've been in the spaces that I've been, and I know I've had to go back and start over and start a different strategy. But it was something that I wanted, so it's like, what can I do to make this work, instead of just walking away and because I could have threw the towel away a long time ago when it came to that retail business.
Yeah.
But no, let me restructure this. Let me figure out what it is that's going to make this work now. And I had to figure out, one, where I wanted to be with it, what I wanted to do with it, where I wanted to be with it, and how I was going to measure the success the second time. It's not that I completely failed. It's just that I just don't feel like I was properly prepared for. And granted, I did really well with Exotic Hush. However, a lot of things that we're talking about, I didn't have in place. I didn't know
Mhm.
how to measure certain things. I wasn't looking into certain things. Whereas like now things are a little are a lot different. How do you measure success in your business? Like how do you dictate like how that you're doing good, right? Because a lot of times we just, like you said, people will get to a certain point and because it's not making, and it's usually money, they'll stop and just start something new. How do you measure success and what tips would you give uh I don't even want to say a new entrepreneur since we know so many
Or
veterans.
just entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can hit that wall. I've hit it,
Yeah.
even when it was a few years in. I think that's a good question because I think success is subjective. It's a subjective concept. Usually when people think about success, they're thinking about those tangible things, those things you can see, like how much money, which is important. We're not going to minimize like how much money did we make this month because if you're not making money, you ain't going to be able to keep your doors open.
Okay.
That's why we got to, there has to be a bottom line. So that is one way, that's really one of the most important ways. We have to look at the numbers, like we have to know what our, like Toya always talks about, we have to know our break even analysis. And when she taught us that, like that really changed the
Change,
trajectory of our
didn't it?
businesses, like with
Yes.
hand in hand and vitamin C. Like I know my break even number, like I know it's in my mind, test, we both know it. I
All
know
the
it for
time.
vitamin C. And it's
Yep.
like, this is what I need to at least break even. And fortunately, we haven't gotten to that place where it's like, oh my gosh, we're not even going to break even. So like I think knowing what that number is, your break even analysis, and what we I don't want to assume everybody knows what that means. And what we mean by that is like, what do you need, like thinking about your personal household budget, like what do you need to break even just to make ends meet? Like how much money do we need for overhead,
Yeah.
right? And maybe you want to include like to pay yourself something, because it can get very exhausting, and you can begin resenting the business if you're missing paychecks yourself. Like I would not advise that, because we get in business to pay ourselves too. So
Absolutely.
that's one way of measuring success. And then look around you. Sometimes we just get into that mode where we're just going from task to task, project to project, accomplishment to accomplishment. And we don't take the time to celebrate the small successes. And again, referencing Toya again, because she's just great when she's,
As you do.
talking to us about these things, when she, talks about, think about, what your ideal day was like, as a business owner, like even last year, and look at what you're doing now. Because I know before for me, it was like, oh, I want to see this amount of clients and then I'm going to have a speaking engagement. And now it's like, no, that's not the
That's
ideal
not it.
day
And
for
that
me.
was
It's
crazy
not.
doing that.
So
And that was a
yeah.
little challenge. And when I seen how, first of all, like I seen how much I had accomplished when I did that. And then the way, I think for me, it was like being able to, because being able to spend the time with my husband, because that was more, that was this, whereas like last time, like you said, it was more about work. It was more about me teaching classes, more about me traveling to work. Whereas now it's more about me spending more time with him, traveling. Um, I think my ideal day was like going to riding past and seeing
Mhm.
that mall of businesses that I helped build, of retail business that I
Mhm.
helped build. And it's just like, wow, that stuff is actually happening now. But it's like, you know, it really made me look and say, like, damn, like you really, damn, here I am cussing again. It really made me look like things have changed so much when it came to like when it comes, like you said, the whole system. Not that we don't want to make money, but success for everybody is different.
Different. It is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think
I would say, like, knowing your numbers is that I think that speaks to success, because then that says that you're not constantly in survival mode. When we're in survival mode,
mhm,
we're just like going from thing to thing, trying to make things happen. We don't give ourselves a chance to slow down, because we're like in hustle mode. We're in desperation. We got to make things happen. But when we actually know our numbers and we're able to objectively look at things, I think that speaks to success. Being able to, celebrate the small successes, taking a moment and pausing and, just looking around. And then, just being grateful for, the small things and the big things, taking those
mhm.
pauses. And then also, I got to say this, taking care of your mental health. as entrepreneurs, business owners, like we are at high risk, for mental health conditions and for anxiety and for burnout, just because of the unpredictability and a roller coaster of what it takes to be in this realm. It can feel like a lonely place. That's why it's important to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who get it. Not everybody's going to get your journey. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't get it. Like they can't relate. They don't understand. Like, oh my God, well, why are you doing this if you're so stressed about it? Why wouldn't you just do something that makes you happy and comfortable all the time? I guess that's what separates us. And I think also what speaks to success is the people that you're surrounding yourself with too. What they say, you're the sum of your closest associations. So you get to choose those. We may not be able to choose our family. We love them. We might
Right.
not
You definitely
necessarily
get
like
to. Mhm.
them or their ways all the time. But with your friends, your sister friends, your bros, whatever, like you get to choose them, and that's going to help your path to success, however you define that.
Absolutely. So I do want to back up a little bit because you mentioned the finances and we were talking about the break even
Mhm.
analysis. And I think for my clients, one of the things the reason why I love to make sure that they know what that number is because one, that also can help you dictate, like, so you'll automatically know how many sales you have to make that month. You'll be able to know how hard you have to work or not work that month,
Yep.
right? Which
Yep.
then gets into that burnout and stuff. So it's like people think that these strategies are easy and that it's just like, oh, we just said, okay, this is what we're going to do. No, we actually sit down and we come up with a strategy that's going to work for you so that you're not burned out, so that you're still making the money that you want to make and still being successful and being able to say that you're busy all the time. Like, first of all, nobody want like I think Nicole Webster had mentioned that when we were talking about, like, nobody wants to be busy all the time, right? No.
No,
And people are like,
absolutely
I'm booked
not.
and busy. I'm not booked and busy, and I'm fine
Mm-mm.
with that because for as little bit that I did last year, I actually made more money. So I did what I wanted to do. So it's like you don't have to be in that space where you're like, just because you're so busy, you think that measures success. Not if you can't sleep,
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
if you can't eat, like not if you're not eating right, not if you're, like laying around, like that's it's just not, or when you're working so hard that when you do see the money, it doesn't add
You're
up
too
to.
exhausted to enjoy it.
Yeah, or it's not even adding up to all the work that you did,
Yeah. Yeah. That too.
right? So it's like that those are the things that I feel like, even with, because we have, so Sharise and I have a we collabed and we have a charge your worth session that was deep,
It
because again, like
was.
learning how people don't know how to charge for themselves, and they don't know those, when you don't know those numbers, you can't measure that. You have
You
to be able to
can. You
measure these
have
things.
to know. You have to know. There has to be a strategy. And when you and I were working together last year, and like when we sat down and you did that with me, as far as like what's your number, for these speaking engagements, and it's like it really helped me to put a number on things and know how many speaking engagements that I need to. And we're not talking about hand in hand. We're just talking about me speaking, how many speaking engagements I need to do per month. And if you're undercharging, you're going to get burned out, and it's not good for you and it's not good for your audience, because you're going to show up annoyed, you're going to resent it, because you know that you bring well, if you're great at your craft and what you do, you bring so much value, and you're undervaluing what you have to offer, and it actually hurts the industry too.
Oh,
When you do that, like we have to be on the same page with that. When we talked a lot about that in charge your worth too.
yeah. Thinking about, let's just touch on that for a second. When you discount yourself, you're discounting everybody. You're discounting everybody around you, and that makes it's just not a good space to be in as an entrepreneur, especially because when you get into those numbers and what it is that you have to pay for, it's like, so many people they undervalue themselves, they undervalue their products, their services, even when it comes to, and I will say it, there's so many people out here who don't know, they don't even know who their target audience is to be able to go and attract the people that they want to attract, and they're like, oh, so let me just stop and do this. You're going to keep running into the same problem unless you do the work.
and not only know, once you know who your target audience is, and we talk about this all the time, like you really have to get to know them. Like, who are they? Like, do they
Mhm.
have disposable income, or these are the type of things that they like? What are their pain points? Like, what keeps them up at night? Like, you have to really like be in tune with
Like,
this target audience. Like, you, when your target audience hears something, they're like, oh, that Shauna would say that, or Sharise would say that.
yep.
Like, they get to know you and you get to know them, and it's just like it becomes a great relationship, almost like y'all going to walk down the aisle together.
And it's so much easier to sell when you know them like that. Like, so we were in Vegas, and I took a
Hmm.
client to Vegas to do some shopping. And it was funny. We were laughing because the guy kept trying to get me to buy this. He was like, get this, da, 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 your customers will love this. They won't. I know my people. I'm like, no. And we were laughing because I was telling so many people no. I'm like, no, like I know what my people want. I
Right.
know what is going to get them to buy. I know when I can, what day of the week they'll buy. Like you really, really, really have to, and so many people, they do the basic when it comes to getting to know. I'm supposed to put this up. When you, the basics when it comes to knowing your target audience, because I get a lot of people who are like, oh well, it's a female this age, and this is how much money they make, and I'm like, well, are they married?
That's one part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, do they, because if they are married, does she make the decisions, or does he is he making the decisions? Like, do they have kids? Like, is she? So one of the funnies that when we were out in Vegas was because they were trying to sell the client who it has a plus size boutique little people stuff.
That's
I mean,
funny.
and didn't even care that she was saying, so it's like, no, she knows her people. So she would be, I said, this would make no sense for her to buy this. And they didn't care because they just wanted to sell.
They wanted to
So
sell.
they just wanted
Mhm.
to sell. So, even having those conversations there, we chatted in that text, and I was able, actually, I got two clients from being out there.
Mm.
So, but again, you have to know, and instead of being what did you call it, the woman of all trades or whatever,
Oh
like you
yeah,
don't
the
want to be
master.
that
Yeah, the
person.
master of all trades.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you don't want to be that, and that's fine that you can do, because I could do a lot. Like I could
Me
do
too.
hair, but ain't nobody. I'm not doing no. There's a lot that I can do.
All
However,
this working out I've been doing for almost what 2 decades. I could probably be a trainer and a nutritionist, but I know what works for me and my body. Like, that doesn't
right,
mean I'm about to create this platform and offer people personal training sessions and nutrition lessons,
right,
because that's not my lane. I
right.
just know it works for me, and I read about it.
Right. And it makes it easier. I think people make, and I'm not saying this to say entrepreneurship is not hard, because it's hard. It's hard as
Mhm.
hell. And there is that emotional roller coaster. However, I think people make it a lot harder by taking that hard thinking that you're taking an easy road instead of taking the
Yeah,
time to know certain things,
yeah,
because I
yeah.
promise you,
I agree.
and I say this all the time, if you know that foundation, it is so easy to sell to your people once you know everything about them. It's so easy with you stand in your lane and people to understand your messaging. Like you said, like when they get to know you, like when people would see, even with the store, people would see that there were certain pieces. Oh, that's a Shauna Solomon piece. Like they get to know you just as well. So it's like, just take the time to do that. I do have a free one over on my website, Shauna Solomon and Associates. It's a freebie. It's a free worksheet, target audience worksheet. You can grab that. But we are getting ready to wrap up. I do want to ask you to give our entrepreneurs, I'm not just going to say just the newbies, but give our entrepreneurs some advice to help them grow and get out their own way.
Man, there's when you say that, there's so much that comes to mind. I think the main thing is, and maybe this is part of therapist in me, is that slow down and give yourself some grace. You
Mm,
don't have to like just keep some. Here it is. I think sometimes when something is not working, the busy bee in us, the grinder in us, like we will just keep on, like just trying to push through and work through and try something different. and then we hit this wall, and then we just keep working. Let me keep going. Let me keep at it. And that might be your signal to like just stop
Right.
and slow down. And you might need to take a pause. You might need to take a break. And if your current way is not working, maybe you might want to consider investing in a coach or somebody who can help you with that, because it's clear that you've been trying this and it's not working. It may be time to try something different, because any successful business owner or entrepreneur has invested in a coach at some point. And yes, you are still going to have to do a lot of your own work, but the right coach and a good coach is going to help you with a good strategy to get you on the right path. I've had some good coaches, Shauna being one of them, and I actually am a part of this coaching group right now, and I invest, a good penny for it. And there are times even now where I'm like, do I really want to keep paying this every month? And then at our last mastermind, I'm like, oh, that's why I pay them, because they gave me some advice that actually helped me to keep a deal versus losing a deal, because I was about to make a reactive decision.
Right.
So that's one way. That's probably a great way to get out of your own way. You cannot do it all on your own on this journey. Don't try.
So that's great information. I have a question, because I got to piggyback. When it comes to a coach or hiring a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that, like, are they worth the investment? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes and no. Some are not.
What?
They're like there's bad coaches, there's bad therapists. There's bad restaurants. Like there's bad in everything. And unfortunately, like with everything else, you might have to shop around, and you might lose some money. Like when we talk about the cost of doing business, and it costs before it pays. Like that's a part of it. Like you're going to have to make sure they can have all the skill in the world, but it has to be a good fit for you. Like y'all
Yes.
have to be able to connect. They have to be able to get you. Like it has to be a good fit. And just think about the type of questions you want to ask them, about their experiences. How long have they been in business? What
Woo.
type of risks have you taken? Like if I'm a full-time entrepreneur, the coach that I hire has to be a full-time entrepreneur, and they have to have more experience than me, because I don't know everything, and
Yep.
I won't ever know everything, but I know a lot of things. So whoever I'm bringing on my team, like they have to be more experienced than me. Like my trainer, like he's in great shape. I think I'm in good shape, but it's important for my trainer to be in better shape and have, more knowledge than me. So for me, like that's a requirement for me.
Absolutely. So financially,
Mm-hmm.
how would why you laugh?
Cause that's a big one, but go ahead.
Financially. So like for me, like, so I know from like one of my mentor is well over, like, she's probably mid millions, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has worked with a lot of celebrities. She's done PR for a lot of celebrities. But I'm like, that's where I want to be. I don't want to learn from nobody who is not where I am going or been where I've been.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, and financially, I just feel like what can you tell me if you're not making any money?
I agree. I agree. Like I think oftentimes like that's the elephant in the room. And like I'll just be blunt. It's like, would you go to a fat trainer? Like, I mean, like, I mean, they might be okay. And I'm not here to body shame. Y'all know I'm not that person, but we're just having an honest and a real, conversation, because when we're going to a personal trainer, we're going for a look,
Right.
we're going for a look. Obviously, most of us want to make sure that we are, like our blood levels and our cholesterol and all of those things are in check. But at the end of the day, if we're being honest here, it's because we want to look a certain way. And we know that we don't just get that way from, working out in the gym. It's eating, it's stress management. We know it's everything. But if we're being honest here, if you are evaluating trainers, most of us are going to pick one that is really fit. So just like a financial planner, would you go to a financial planner who was broke? right? Or who is struggling. Maybe they could tell you what not to do. But you don't need somebody to tell you what not to do because you're struggling too. You need to know what to
Absolutely.
do. So
Absolutely.
you're going to, what got you here won't get you there. So people can only take you as far as they've been. I can't take somebody to $1 million because I don't make $1 million
That part.
yet.
Yep. Yet.
The business, might be close to making that in the next, year or so, but I'm not making that. So I can't coach somebody to that because I haven't been there.
Yep.
I know I will. I'm just not there yet.
Yep. And so, a lot, and I get that question a lot. I get that question a lot when we do clarity calls. And I'm like, yeah, so I say six figures because I have helped. I know what I have helped people do. I
Yeah.
know where I have
Yep.
been
Yep.
mid six figures with our businesses. So yes, I absolutely can. I know what work is required in order for you to get to that point. Like you said, can I help you get to 1 million? No. Do I have an idea? Absolutely, but I haven't done it yet. So for me to
Yeah.
tell you that, no, I'm not going to do that. And my thing with coaches is they're not guaranteed. You
They're
have
not.
to do the work yourself. Like I know with us, like first of all, we say we don't guarantee, but if I put together a strategy and you decide to listen to somebody else, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that there is this stigma when it comes to coaches that we're supposed to do it all, and we're not. We're there
Same
to
stigma with
guide you.
therapists too.
Yeah, like no, we're there to guide you. We're there to accelerate your growth and to help you get to where you want to go faster.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know for some of the coaches that I had, like I said, with Kashara being one of them, some of the coaches that I've had have literally shifted how I viewed my business, something that I did different, or made me do something different so that I can scale and grow. And I had even listened before, I probably would have been a lot further. And I say that all the time, and you have to be like, not only does it have to be a fit, you have to be ready. You have to be your mind, you have to have the right mindset in order to work with a coach and to say, this is what I want to do. One, because you're putting an investment in, and you got to do the work in order to see the results. And a lot of people are not doing that. They're just like, oh, I just want, no, I need your mindset to change. I need you to want it. Just because if I want it more than you want it, that's a problem.
Yes, absolutely. It's yeah, right.
And that's what I see that is happening. So do you have anything else that you want to say to the
Yeah. So, I want to thank everybody for listening. If you want to connect with me, at Sharise Nance across all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. I may be forgetting one. I think those are the main TikTok. I think those are the main ones. And like Shauna coach me, fresh content every day, which I do schedule, and it's relevant.
yes.
If you're looking for more information or tips and strategies like on managing stress, burnout, and even if you are someone who is in the field as a therapist, a social worker, what have you, and you're thinking about taking that leap into entrepreneurship, please, reach out, subscribe to my website, www.sharicenance.com.
Yep, and all that information is below going across the screen. She also has some books and resources on her website as well. So make sure you head over there and sign up. And her emails are amazing. So make sure you sign up
Thank
to get
you.
her newsletters. But that's it. That's all that we have for today for Life of a CEO. I thank you so much, Sharise,
Thank you.
for
I enjoyed
joining me
this.
today. Me too. Like so, again, this is so that we can inspire, empower, and help other entrepreneurs grow. Sometimes they need to hear it from women who've actually been there. So you guys make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you hit that little button to subscribe, and then also hit the bell so that you can get notification. We will do another series 2 weeks from now, Thursday. And that's all for now. Thank you guys so much
Bye.
for watching.